It's the West Tigers podcast, a milestone edition, episode number 350. Gary's here, Nick's here, and Eddie is here. Eddie and I recorded episode number 1 all those years ago when we were complaining and agitating about finishing 9th and what a terrible disaster it was. Are we ever going to be a better team? And here we are after 350 episodes, Eddie, and I hope it's not us that's caused all this.
No, it's interesting, Joel. I think I said a couple of weeks ago we didn't really appreciate the 9th days, and yes, they were frustrating, but we killed them. Like I think Nick said to me, we killed to win half our games at the moment, but I don't think we appreciated it, Joel. It was just simple times, just me and you running 9th. Now we've got all these blow-ins, and we run last every year. So times better in 2019, weren't they?
Well, that's clearly the X factor, isn't it? It's these people that shaping the club. You know, like Gary, who's got friends in high places. You know, he's telling him about team selections and which coach to pick and which coach not to pick, etc. Is that right, Gary?
Look, all I can say is imagine if you're doing 350 episodes, just the two of you.
There would have been a few monologues, Gary.
Mate, like you need the extra support because you just couldn't show up 2 times a week to do it by yourself.
Well, technically, this is episode number 351, Eddie, because you did the podcast by yourself, which I heard. Speaking of monologues, remember you recorded that podcast by yourself with some observations of a particular game or something?
Well, I remember that's why you got in touch with me originally. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was just sort of mucking around doing some stuff, 10 or 15 minutes on each game. And I think you got in touch with me. I remember doing that first one at I think it was the Kingsgrove Hotel. We haven't done too many face-to-face. That's one of the good things to come out of COVID, I suppose, Joel, is a Zoom. Everyone does things on Zoom now. It's to be in part of the world and just speak into the computer.
Seriously? Could you imagine... Like, I didn't hear those first couple of episodes that just had Eddie, but, mate, that must have been a punish. Like, just... Like, I hear you in our chat, and just that by yourself.
Well, the good thing is we did a few at the Oakley Hotel because Joel didn't like to travel too much. I think he lived in that area, so I used to sneak in a couple of drinks post podcast.
Yeah, I don't like to leave the home suburb too much. Don't like to wander too far, unless I'm going on holidays, of course. Okay, 48 points to 30 was the end result against the Cowboys. I don't know, was it 6 straight losses or 7? I've lost count. I've stopped counting. But it was another disappointing night at Leichhardt Oval. I'm not going to do one word. The reason why I'm not going to do one word is because our website is still suffering some problems. Out of our hands, hopefully be resolved very, very soon, but very frustrating and very annoying. Nick, I'm going to throw to you first. We scored 30 points. This is the West Tigers team that struggled to score points. We seem to be able to, in the last couple of months, put a bit of a score on, but what's happened to our defence? Some of those tries were just soft as.
Yeah, they were, Joel, very soft. It was disappointing, right? Because, before the defence problems, we lost Latu Fainu in the 18th minute. So we lost the halfback, before the first quarter was even gone. And then off the back of Latu going off, I remember the Cowboys had 4 or 5 sets in a row and scored a try. And then not long after that, off the kick return, I remember Stefano running a ball up on the third tackle, threw a hospital flick out the back, ended up going to Galvin and then to Appy. Before he knew it, we'd lost 20 metres. Appy spills the ball and Cowboys score off the back of that set. So, all of a sudden, defence is shot, game plan's shot, and we're behind the 8 ball. So, yeah, very tough.
Yeah, defensively, it's really strange because at the start of the season, we're quite bullish and quite happy with what John Morris had done with the defensive side of the ball. But over the past month, it has just fallen apart. That right-hand side defence on Thursday night just wasn't acceptable. That edge of Porter, Fatape and Staines just weren't working as a team. They weren't marking up. And some of the decisions that Charlie Staines made really reminded me of decisions David Nofaluma was making and getting criticised for. There was an incident with one of their tries where he ended up inside his centre. That's how far up and in he rushed. His centre was outside him. And it really brought back memories of what our defence has been like, especially on that same right edge for the last 4 or 5 years. And we've got to do something to shore up that right hand edge because it was just leaking points the other night. And really, if the Cowboys had have really targeted, because I don't think they overly targeted it, that's just where the space was. If they really went in with a game plan and really attacked that edge, it could have been even uglier.
Defence is about attitude, Eddie. That's what they always say. But you wouldn't say, I mean, just further to what Gary's saying, they weren't exactly ripping us apart all over the field. It was just that one edge that seemed to really cause us a lot of issues.
Yeah, I wonder how many times they've played together that edge, Porter, Fatape and Staines. That's always a problem when you get changes in your team late in the season, especially a team like the Cowboys, which is very fast and often targets edges with a lot of success. But I just, it's exciting in a way that the fact that our attack has got a lot better, but it's coincided with the defence getting much worse. So I'm not sure if that's just a shift in mentality in terms of trying to open up our attack, using the ball more, or whether it's just getting younger players in the side and definitely the fact that it's such a long season. I mean, that would be telling. Coming in every Monday, you don't have the same intensity when you're at the bottom of the ladder. Defending gets a bit harder. You get a bit more excited when you get the ball. I think that's sort of to be expected, but the good clubs, and Canterbury's the example, that they can shift a whole lot of points last year. I think they might have been worse than us defensively, but they brought in a defensive mentality. And Benji talks about a defensive mentality, but we talk it, but we don't act it. We can act it for the first 8 weeks of the season and we say it's improved. And I reckon we've done that a few years in a row. But by the end of the year, you look up and we're in the bottom few sides defensively every year. So until we genuinely bring in a defensive mentality, and that starts day one of pre-season, we're not going to progress up the ladder.
The hard thing, I think, for us is, especially at this time of year, the season's gone once again. It's been gone for months once again. And defence is all about effort. And when you know you're no chance of making the finals and that's happening early in the season, I think that's where that trend of that defence getting worse and worse throughout the season comes from. I think at the start of the year, they're all full of confidence. They're all full of effort and belief that they can do something in this competition. And as the season gets longer and as it gets harder, I think the effort areas around that go away. It wasn't so much effort areas there the other night, though. When you have a look at that edge of Porter, Fatape and Staines, that really the guys that you want to be backups or even possibly backups of your backups. Like that's a really weak edge, both in defence and attack. Though Porter, I thought, had a really good game with the ball. Defensively, he was caught out a number of times, and that level of defence isn't high enough for NRL, and they're not NRL standard players, and that's a little bit of the issue the other night. But as this season progresses, it's not going to get any better. The effort areas around defence, anyway.
It ended up being 39 missed tackles, 12 errors. Porter did make 124 metres. He probably was our standout forward in terms of making metres, which I was
a couple of really nice offloads as well.
A couple of nice offloads as well, yeah. But Nick, I think that when you're not winning the physical battle, when you're running backwards because you're getting dominated, I think you're more likely to miss tackles. The Cowboys ran it really hard, have a lot of pace and quite a lot of power and strength up the front. I think it's just another indication of what happens when it goes wrong for us. It's because we're losing the physical battle up front. We're losing it all across the field.
Yeah, we spoke about that the other night too, didn't we? About the physicality, your favourite word. So, I think it's becoming more prominent as the season gets into the latter half as well, that where the effort's starting to drop a little bit and we are getting beaten and it's probably starting to force a few errors. I mean, how do you fix it for next season? Recruitment's one part of it, but attitude's another. So I'm not sure whether you obviously need to supplement the playing roster. Do you add to the coaching roster? Do you change the game plan? I'm not sure what the simple fix is.
Well, we need a forward leader, don't we? We need someone that's like a Dale Finucane, or you can name any number of guys that actually are the forward leader. Eddie, who would you say was the forward leader out there the other night against the Cowboys? It doesn't come to mind.
On paper, it's David Klemmer, but I mean, his production and his minutes seem to be going down. I don't know whether that's some sort of based on his form. I find it a bit bizarre because he was consistent when he was getting long minutes, and I know he was sort of been playing a bit of a link role at times, which doesn't seem to suit him for me. But yeah, I don't know whether it's obviously personnel, but also they need to find someone that can change that culture in terms of the defensive. And you mentioned Dale Finucane. I know he no longer plays. I mentioned him a couple of weeks ago. Just someone who gets that whole attitude around training and being there for your mate and not letting your mate down, because at the moment they talk. Benji talks a big game about defence, but it just doesn't translate across the season.
You have to also put in the context that as Nick said, we lost Fainu after, I think it was 17 or 18 minutes. We had Justin Olam sent off. I mean, some of that does, of course, naturally affect the way that the Tigers played, and that has to be taken into account. But Gary, I think even before that happened, or at least through most of that game, I never felt like we were going to win. I always felt like the Cowboys were one step ahead of us regardless.
Yeah, outside of scoring that first try, Sam Fainu's tried to open up the match. I thought up until that point we're competing quite well, but it did fall away quite quickly after that. And I think their first try was down that right edge we've been talking about, and they went back there repeatedly. And until we get that edge, look, you got to be strong in the middle. And you're right, Joel. We're far too often a retreating defensive line. Once you're a retreating defensive line, you're at the mercy of the opposition halves and outside backs, because you can't get in position early enough, and you're backing off. And if you're backing off when you've got players that they have in their side coming at you, then it's really, really hard. But I think our biggest problem at the moment out on those edges is just poor communication and guys operating not as a team, operating independently. That's why you end up with a guy like Charlie Staines inside his centre, because he's making a decision not based on what his centre's doing. And that communication around our edge defence has been really poor for a number of years. I thought it was a lot better at the start of the year, but as injuries have hit and as the season's got a little bit longer, it's just got worse. And it doesn't really matter what personnel we've had on that right edge. We had Adam Dewey playing on that right edge a few weeks ago, and that right edge defence was poor in that game as well. So it's something we really do need to sort out. I do think we need an upgrade for that right-hand centre. It's such a crucial position defensively. And a guy like Vatape, it's hard to say, just isn't up to it defensively.
You could also make a case to say that the chopping and changing that's taken place in our backline this year has been very disruptive. If you look at Melbourne or you look at Penrith, pretty much it's the same week in, week out. He's got their guys to stick with it. They know their combinations. They know their calls.
And what are we up to, 38 players or something?
Yeah.
For the season so far. And that's not just that right edge, that's just across the field. And how do you build that defensive structure and that defensive teamwork when you've had 38 different players play for you in a season?
One constant has been the fullback. I thought he played really well. One of his best games that he's played in first grade, 266 metres. Buller, always a threat with the ball. That's the Buller that we all have suspected is in there. It's nice to see it coming out.
Apart from Eddie, who,
had him. You wanted to swap with Dane Laurie about 6 weeks ago, didn't you?
Yeah, I was going to. We didn't do one word, but he was going to be my one word because I obviously got a couple of mates that listen to the podcast, and whenever Buller does something good, they're like Gary. They remind me, so they were reminding me constantly during this game about my opinions on Buller throughout the year. But it was fantastic. It actually took me back to his probably first 5 or 6 games last year, where there was the production line was massive. I think it was 260 metres, 2 tries, 3 line breaks. I don't know. I haven't watched the replay. I watched it from the hill, but that first try he scored, he just seemed to go straight and hard. So whether that's a conscious decision to just run a little bit harder and straighter, and then he burned Drinkwater on the outside. I know Drinkwater's not the best defender, but he looked like he surprised him for a bit of pace. And obviously, getting those 2 tries, you could see the confidence and the body language in him came up. So that was by far, I thought, his best game of the season. And it's good to see it's not just petering out like it does for some young players. And, we were talking about second-year syndrome, whereas he's actually had a lull and a mixed season, I would say, but is maybe finishing it strongly the last month. I think he's been definitely very good, easily our best player on Thursday.
For me, a big difference on Thursday night was he was straightening the ball. You're exactly right, Eddie. But he was also fishing around and supporting around those forwards. He ran onto that nice offload by Porter, which put him away. I can't remember who ended up scoring the try. But that put him away down the field. And that sort of playing a bit more through the middle and playing a little bit more off the forwards, we haven't seen him do. And I really think it's been a detriment to his game because all he's really been doing is chiming in on the outside of a backline that's going across field. And it really doesn't provide him with an opportunity to show that footwork and the speed that he has. And I really was really pleased to see him kind of sniffing around those forwards and looking to run off those offloads the other night. I think that makes a big difference to his game and makes him much more dangerous, both in that broken play from the offload, but also when he does shift out and chime into the back line because he's not always just sitting in that same spot.
Yeah, Gary, I wonder if Jareem listens to the podcast because I'm sure a little while ago I said I'd love to see him play a bit more like Brett Hodgson used to play, sniffing
around. You're taking the credit for it, Nick.
Yeah, I'll take this one, Gary.
I think Eddie and I have been saying it all year, haven't we, Eddie?
Nah, I'll dig out the episode. I reckon I can find it. But honestly, that was the best game I've seen him play, and you can tell he's a confidence player because he, like you said, Eddie, I think was it the first try or that might have been the second try. I can't remember that he scored where he pumped the fist when he was running over the try line. That was unreal to see. That got the crowd going. It got him going.
I saw it. I don't know if I just Googled his name or something. And I don't know if it was an old article or a couple of weeks ago. He mentioned sort of a bit of a battler with anxiety, and he's a quiet sort of guy. And there are a few quotes from him around, he reads the Bible and he's a man of faith, and he's very shy sort of guy. So I wonder if that's been a few sort of demons this year, and that was just a release there on Thursday night where he's actually showing a bit of emotion. It looked a bit more like himself from the first year. I thought that was interesting.
Mate, he's that shy of a guy. When he won the Player of the Year award last year, Benji Marshall had to get up and speak for him. So I think that is a little bit of an issue, but I really think it's something he's going to have to overcome, at least out on the field. Like, that fullback role is a leader of your team no matter how experienced you are. You're organising the defensive line, you're chiming into the attack, playing as a second 5'8" a lot of the time. He needs to be a leader of that team, and I know he's inexperienced. This is only his first full season, but you really do need to be able to be that vocal leader out on the field. So it's probably something he needs to work on a little bit, but I'm sure he'll get there.
Okay, should we have a go at buy, sell and hold? Now, this is a buy, sell and hold on steroids. We've got heaps of questions.
The Olympics version, Joel.
It's the Olympics. It's the marathon. It's the Chinese Olympic team version. Buy, sell, and
hello to our Chinese listeners.
Our download numbers in Beijing are going to be So you can buy, you can sell, you can hold as many times as you want. I'm not going to be like Eddie and say you can only do one. You can basically.
Eddie will just hold every single one of them.
Exactly. Where should we start? A couple of things we've already spoken about, so we'll do it quickly. This one, the West Tigers fans should feel a bit optimistic, given for the first time in 3 seasons we seem to be able to score some points, buy, sell or hold. Gary Watson.
Yeah, I'll buy that there are reasons for optimism, and our attack is looking better. The reasons for optimism is not so much just our attack, but it's those young guys we've got coming through. I think our young guys, especially the other night, once again, were let down by our experienced players. So the attacking ability of those young players, I think, is something to be optimistic about.
One thing that possibly the difference, or definitely the difference this year, if we end with 4 wins and a spoon, that's 3 years straight. So that's very consistently bad. But I wrote down some names of players that if they were on the open market tomorrow, clubs would snap them up in a heartbeat, and that's Galvin and Samuela Fainu. Fanua and Jareem Buller would be in that list, perhaps a ratchet down from those first 2 I mentioned. And then Latu and Talon Da Silva haven't shown much, but they're young guys that have a lot of raps on them. So that's 6 guys there that are 22 years old or younger that other clubs would snap up in a heartbeat if they were off contract. So that's a positive. It's not always a positive if we see Stefano, because if we can't turn it around, they will be the next ones wanting to be out the door. But I can't remember the back end of 22 and 23, but I definitely couldn't have rattled off 6 names.
And I actually think you're a little harsh on Talon. I think he's shown a bit more than not much over the last month. I think he's been really strong the last month, to the point where I want him getting more game time, even with Appy in that hooker role. I'm not saying we don't play Appy, but Talon needs to be taking some of those minutes away from him so we get the best out of both of them. I think Talon's been really good the last 3 or 4 weeks, whatever it is he's been back in that first grade side. Some nice breaks, some nice deception around hooker, and given really nice service. So I'm happy to see much more of him, and I think clubs would be all over him if he was off contract.
Imagine if we took those 6 out, Eddie. What would we be left with? I don't think we'd be left with a Magpies team that would compete in Cup.
Yeah, I mean, it's in a way, it's sort of better. I know the senior players have been a disappointment, but you'd rather have 6 good young players than 6 guys in their 30s at the end. So there's an opportunity. There's a basis there of good footballers. And if they were in a Manly system or a Roosters or a Melbourne, you'd be saying, wow, this team's going to explode. But it's our history of underperformance and the confidence level in the joint, which means I've got no idea how this is going to turn out.
The real positive for me is you have a look at that Jersey Flegg side as well. Now, we've got players eligible for Jersey Flegg playing throughout our NRL side. Some of them are eligible for SG Ball. A lot of them are eligible for SG Ball. We've got players eligible for that Jersey Flegg side playing in the New South Wales Cup side that's getting flogged. And that Jersey Flegg side's still running in the top 8. I think that's a great performance from that team. When you have a look at the players we could be fielding in that side, I think that age group of juniors coming through, that Jersey Flegg age and just below, is a really strong bunch of kids we have coming through, which is why it's so important to get the next couple of months right in the players we bring into the club to support them. Because this year, our best leaders, outside of Appy, have been those young kids.
And when you're talking about young players, you need a couple of waves to come through. It's one thing to have a group come through, but I mean, we've experienced that before. But what was on the tail end of that? Not a great deal that we're able to continue the success. Where that's what Penrith has been able to do. It's been 2 or 3 waves of, they're now more senior guys at 26, 27, and they've got another batch of 20-year-olds coming through. So, yeah, interesting.
Because the thing is, you're going to lose some of them as well.
That's right.
Like, you're not going to keep all of them. So it's really crucial that you do have that next lot coming in below them, because when you do lose a couple of them, you've got those other young guys coming through, and that's what we've got to get right at the moment as well.
It's a strange feeling. Like, I'm not the hurt, the disappointment, or the losses always hurt, and I hate them, and I hate losing. I hate conceding 48 points. But there's another part of me that's like, I don't know how I should feel. It's like, well, this is a team that's actually proving an offensive threat, and there's some gelling there, and there's some stuff coming together. But then you look at the scoreboard, and it's like it's six losses in a row, and we've conceded 48 points. How can you feel okay about that, Nick?
Yeah, it was very close to not being an 18-point deficit, though. I mean, if we hadn't have dropped that ball, with a minute to go, where they ran up the other end and scored, potentially, if we had got lucky and scored ourselves as a 6-point game rather than 18. So, I can see that there's silver linings, but we're not there yet, are we? We just keep making those fundamental mistakes that just blow us off the park each week.
And the biggest problem at the moment is 30 points should be enough to win every game. You shouldn't lose a game when you score 30 points. So until we get that defensive side of the ball right, scoring 30 points doesn't matter when you let in 48.
I'm going to throw one over the net to Eddie. It's definitely a little bit less of the optimistic and more pessimistic side of things. So I've tailored this just for you, Eddie. This will be right up your alley, I reckon. Dismal contracts like Jaden Sullivan will cost us success in 2025. Buy, sell, hold.
Yeah, buy. I mean, how can you answer any other way? Because, I mean, they're proving hard to get off the books. I'm sure we'll talk about Bateman later. I've got a few things to say about him. But, I think, where were they yesterday? Mr. Wong's or out some Chinese meal? That seemed like fake news, Joel, the Jaden Sullivan leaving party.
Most excited I've been all year, mate.
I don't know. I don't follow Mario Tartak on Instagram, but apparently his Instagram's a bit weird with stuff like that, and you can never quite tell if it's real or not real. But there's a lot of bad contracts, Joel, and even guys we're not trying to get off the books. No offense, but Alex Twaal's on a 4-year deal. Brent Naden's there until the end of 25. Stafford Toa's, I think, there till the end of 26. I'm not saying they're all terrible footballers, but they're not producing at this club. They're not giving what you'd expect from probably decently paid first graders. So this is going to be a problem at least going into 25, possibly into 26. Who knows what happens with guys like David Clemmer and Justin Olam? Like, they look like their best football's behind them. They've got multiple years to go. So there's a lot of bad contracts, a lot of desperate contracts. And it's going to really test Shane Richardson and Benji.
Okay, along the same lines, I'll throw it to you, Nick. The West Tigers and Magpies sides are a long way off the pace. Was Richo wrong when he was quite bullish about our roster earlier in the year? Did he get it wrong? Did he need to see these players in action a little bit more before he kind of said, we're not that far off?
Yeah, I have to buy that. The actions speak and the results speak for themselves, don't they? Yeah, it's been another long season for both grades. Tough for the fans. I know there's a lot of fans that get out to Magpies games too. So, when your top team, when your NRL team's struggling, and your reserves are struggling, and there's not a lot in between, when you start losing players from an NRL team and you're only bringing guys up from Cup, or you're digging even deeper for the kids in the lower grades to come up again and fill your NRL spots, it does make it really tough. Yeah, I have to buy that, mate. It's I don't know what else I can say. It's just been a tough season again.
And that's the hard part about the next couple of months is because it's not just the NRL roster we need to turn over. We need to turn over that Magpies roster as well. So once you get below the top 36 players we have in the club, the top 30, and then your development players, all those extra players on the train and trial contracts, we need a massive turnover in that group of footballers as well, because there just isn't the experience there. There just isn't the support there. And we're putting young guys into that New South Wales Cup side who are just being thrown to the wolves at that level as well. Not only are we doing that with the NRL young guys coming through, we're doing it with the Cup kids who are playing in that side as well, because that's been a really tough season for them as well. But up until last week, they had been building and improving a little bit, but last week was a really disappointing result.
Just remind me, with the Behind the Raw podcast with Richo last week, is that something Richo spoke about, was trying to build up the depth with the older fellas and to strengthen that sort of, around both grades next season?
Yeah, he said that a number of times. So he said it in that Behind the Raw about getting more experience down into that side to kind of support them. I did hear rumours through the week that the option for Aiden Caesar may have been taken up for next year. Now, I don't know how accurate that is, but that there was a rumour around. And I'm hoping, I don't really want him taking up the top 30 roster spot for next season. But the only benefit I see of him is putting him in that reserve grade side for a little bit of leadership and mentorship in that side. But I guess that's still to be seen whether that rumour was true or not.
Okay, this one's for you, Eddie. Every day I see players re-signing with their clubs, with the clubs that they're already with. So the question is, for buy, sell, hold, is it getting increasingly difficult to recruit quality players in the NRL? Because it seems to me like there's not a lot of players leaving their clubs lately.
No, I'll buy that. I think heard Phil Gould talk about it a couple of times, and he's obviously heavily involved in that sort of business. But I think given the salary cap has continually gone up, I think 2 years ago there was a real a swath of re-signings because people taking good deals, good money at their clubs. So it's fairly dry out there in terms of definitely high-quality playmakers. We're okay for playmakers. It's the back line and the forward pack where we're really struggling. So, but like Richo said, things do drop out of the tree. Doesn't look like Brian Toto is going to drop out of the tree, sadly. But, it's a pretty scary situation to be in, Joel, where I know we've got the $2 million and we might, even have more if we get Jaden Sullivan and a couple others off the books. But who are you going to buy? Like, what is the point of spending $2.5 million on journeymen and rejects? And who's the redhead from Canberra? I've forgotten his name, but he's going to bring him up later. But I can't get excited about that. It's just you've got to get everything right. And to be fair to Canterbury, they didn't go out and buy big names. They just got everything right in terms of buying the right sort of characters and turned it around. But it's not going to be easy.
The hard thing with the situation we're in is we're relying on players that other clubs are letting go. That's a position we find ourselves in to improve your roster at this later stage for next year. You're not looking at the players who are still off contract, because the players who are still off contract now for next season, they're off contract for a reason. They're off contract because no one's committed to signing them up yet. So we're really reliant on maybe a club's in a little bit of salary cap trouble and they need to release a high-profile player, a highly paid player who's maybe not quite producing value for money for them. But they're the type of players we're going to be looking at between the now and the start of next season. We're not going to be adding really current state of origin players into our forward pack or into our back line for next season, because those players aren't available. You have to be signing those players 18 months before down the track. So we need to be looking at those players now for 2026. We need to be making those decisions now about who we're going to target for who are off contract on November 1 and you can start talking to. But for next year, we're very reliant and we're very locked in to what other clubs are kind of discarding. And unless you're looking in England and bringing someone over from England, what we get is going to depend a fair bit on what other clubs are letting go.
I'll stay with you, Gary. I'll flick this one straight back over the net to you for buy, sell, hold. West Tigers need to investigate exactly what went wrong this year. An internal investigation, an internal probe to get the answers as to why we've ended up running last again.
Look, I think you should be doing that every year, doing a little bit of a fairly in-depth review of your season, no matter where you finish. And I'm sure some of the clubs, I'm sure the Broncos are going to be looking at it, and they were in a grand final 12 months ago. So 100% we need to be having a look at not just what went wrong, but what we need to do better. You can have a look at the things that went well as well, because you want to repeat those. But I think it's really important we do have a look at this season and what didn't work and what did, and try and plan that those things don't happen next season.
Gary, who would you get to do that sort of review, though? Because you'd love, we don't obviously remember the days of Pascoe doing his own review, and that was a disaster. But, you'd love someone like Craig Bellamy just to come in for a month and go through every player, interview him, and he could probably tell you this club's 10 or 15 years behind the Melbourne Storm. But should it be Shane Richardson? Should it be Benji? Or should it be someone independent that looks at it? Because I feel sorry for the club and some of these senior guys. I know we've hammered them, but imagine going, we're fans. We don't have to turn up Monday morning at West Tigers headquarters, and just the morale of the place. Even guys that, work in those offices for the last 3 or 4 years, your first grade last, your reserve grade last, the women are coming last. Just the morale of the place. It'd be very hard to just get the mindset, in the right direction.
Right now, this year, I'm very happy for Shane Richardson to do that. He's new into our club. He's spent the last, not even 12 months having a look at what's going on. I think he's the exact right person to have a look at what happened this season and what, especially on the football side, what we can do better. And I think he's got the experience from across the game to do that. If we're at this point again, 12 months' time, that's when I'd be looking at someone from outside the club coming in and doing a little bit of a review of that football side of things. But right now, I think it's the perfect time for Shane Richardson to really get in there and have a look and make some decisions. He's got his plan for the next 3 years in place. Get in there and have a look at the football department and see what needs being fixed. And I'm guessing that's happening already when you have a look that Robbie Farah's not going to be there next year. So I think some of those decisions are already starting to happen. I think really crucial is who you get in now to support Benji Marshall as a head coach, so who his assistant coach is going to be. But I think Shane Richardson's that person to do that right now.
You haven't sent your CV in, have you, Gary?
Mate, my CV just constantly gets mailed to them every day.
All right, Eddie's going to have his say on this because he already mentioned it, but I'll ask you, Nick. John Bateman said post-game for the first game for the Super League club, it's good to be back at a good club. which was subtle. They
Didn't they
subsequently-
lose?
They did lose heavily. Yes. Buy, sell, or hold. He's done at West Tigers. I'm buying it. What are you doing?
Buy with all the money that I have. I couldn't believe he came out and said that off the back of a heavy defeat. I just couldn't believe it. And I actually made an effort on the weekend to try and watch that game back. I only got through the first half and turned it off. But I made sure I watched Bateman come on and just had a look at how he was playing, and he didn't add anything. Maybe you could probably blame jet lag. He hasn't been over there for very long, but it wasn't pretty. So, yeah, for that comment to come out of his mouth after half a game with Warrington, a bit rude, wasn't it? I mean, how do you expect that to go down at the Tigers? Like Benji and Richo must be just shaking their heads saying, what do? We just got to cut him.
I think we actually need to cut Nick from the pod. Preparation, he's watching games for a second time. He's watching Super League games. Mate, you're making the rest of us look bad.
Well, there's nothing else to watch. It's not like there's Olympics or anything on, so, rather watch footy back.
Joel, I wrote down four-letter words that I've got for John Bateman, but I can't read three of them because
We can use our
I'm surprised you got
imagination. Yeah.
you can. One of them starts with F, one starts with C, one starts with K, but I'm going to read the other one starting with F, and that's fake. He's a fake. Seriously, mate. You should be thanking the club. They let you go on a 6-week holiday back home to a team in the top 4 who've made it to the top 4 without you doing anything. You turn up and you lose 22-4 in your first game to some middling Hull or whoever they are. And then you said it's good to be back in a good club. He also said, I have a contract there. I have to honour my contract. I've got 2 years there. I'm contracted another 2 years. I'll have to see what's said and what goes on from there. So could you be any less effusive in that you don't want to be here? And if you also have the misfortune of following him on Instagram, and that's players' personal pages, so they post cryptic sort of stuff. And it's very telling. After Stefano signed, big congratulations to Stefano for going to Melbourne Storm. For me, that's just totally unprofessional. Send him a text. Don't put it out there on your social media where Tigers fans follow you and whatever. So I just say, just stop paying him for a few months. Let him kick up a stink or something. He doesn't want to come back. We don't want him back. So that's the end of my rant. I told you there'd be a rant, Joel, at some stage, and that's it.
I like it.
And not just that, those comments about the junior players being treated better than the senior players. Mate, check out your form. There's a reason for that. If the senior players want to take a good hard look at how they've performed this year and compare it to how a lot of those young kids have performed, I'd be treating them differently as well.
The ego is cashing checks at the skill. He's writing checks that the skill can't cash for John Bateman at this point in his career. I'm going to ask Nick this one because I know Gary's going to say no because of the colour of the guy's hair, and Eddie's already said no. Corey Horsburgh would be a good addition for 2025.
Yeah, I'll buy that. I like redheads, especially big reds. Corey's one of those. I don't know. You got to look at what you've lost and what can you gain to replace it. So we've lost Stefano, a 1 Origin game forward. Could we gain Corey Horsburgh, a 1 Origin game forward? I don't. You know what? You're probably going to tease me again, but on my way home from the office today, I watched some Corey Horsburgh highlights on the train this afternoon, and to be honest,
Keep him off the pod.
the clips were very short. There weren't many, so I will say that much. I don't know. I'm not sure what he could add. He does look like he's got a bit of mongrel, and I haven't watched him too closely, so I'll throw it to you guys for your comment.
How do you think you'd go in the most undisciplined side in the competition?
That's the thing. Joel, seriously, how are we meant to get excited about being by far the most undisciplined team and adding a guy who Ricky Stewart said something, I'll paraphrase, he said something like, you've got to live up to the standards of being a Raider. He's played 2 first-grade games this year, so there's obviously issues there with his commitment. I know he's fallen out with the coach, but how do you expect a player to be at a middling sort of club like Canberra and have discipline and form problems and then come to a club in the bottom of the rung? Give me one example of a player that has turned their career around. There might be a few. I can't think off the top of my head of a player who's had discipline problems and come to the Tigers turned it around. Maybe back in the days of Todd Payton or something, or I
Joey
don't know.
Leilua.
But it's just I just can't. And maybe he will be. If you look at his CV, you go, okay, he's played for Queensland. He had a good year at Canberra, and he's one of the few players available. But I think it's sort of the players the the type of character they have and personality is going to be just as important as the quality. And if we just add another ill-disciplined wild card that is a low percentage chance of coming off, I don't think that's, we've got to get some players that are going to look after these young guys. And Corey Horsburgh, or whatever his name is, it doesn't exactly fill me with confidence.
I do actually agree with you guys, and something's happened there at the Raiders, right? Because, like you said, he's played 2 NRL games this season. He's played a hell of a lot of cup. Is that another example of a bad contract? Because looking on Zero Tackle, he's contracted to Canberra till the end of 2027. Well, that's a long-term deal, which I don't know when it was renewed. Perhaps last season.
Last year,
He did have one huge year. It might have been last year or the year before.
Yeah, one big year, one hit wonder. So for the Raiders to drop him significantly and look to get rid of him that early into a long-term deal, it doesn't say a great deal for his future.
Well, the only issue that you'd say is that if it's a market where you can't attract anybody, like that's the thing, is that the market is primed for a decision like giving Corey Horsburgh a contract. I mean, we do need some aggression. He would, and I mean tempered aggression, and we do need somebody who could cause a bit of pain in the defensive line, etc. But yeah, there are some definitely concerns about the bigger picture for Corey, Gary.
And you'd be looking at, if his contract's through the 2027, that's the contract that's how long you're looking at signing him for. So I think that's one that you're best to avoid. To me, it's just too much risk for too long a time. And I think the biggest problems when you have a look at the John Bateman signing, when you have a look at the Jaden Sullivan signing, when you have a look at the Clemmer signing, the biggest issue with those signings are the length of those contracts. The length of those contracts and the value of those contracts. If you had Bateman on a 2-year contract, which I think Eddie and I were speaking about at the time, then you're right at the end of it and you're just about out of the mess that it is now. He's still got 2 years to go. A 2-year contract for a guy like John Bateman, I think, would have been perfect. I think he could have filled a role for 2 years, and I'd be a lot more positive about his time at the club right now if his contract was ending at the end of this year. The fact that we've stuck with him for another 2 years, the fact that Justin Olam, who we can't seem to get fit and staying on the field, that's another contract that's an awfully long contract. And for me, we've got to be smart about this. If we are looking at picking up some guys who are coming out of other clubs, then I don't want guys who we're going to have on our books for 3 to 4 years. I want guys that we're going to get off our books hopefully in 12 months, at worst in 2 years. That's what we've got to be really careful about it with these signings we're making at the moment, is we can't be giving 3 years to guys who are at risk or guys who haven't been performing. And I think that's a mistake we've made. We've gambled on contracts. I think it's quite obvious when you have a look at some of the guys we've got who are causing issues. Even, like the Jaden Sullivan, the John Batemans, the Justin Olam, they're all contracts that we've gambled on. And when you're coming bottom of the ladder, you've got to do a little bit of that. But I think we've been putting too much risk for too long a time in those contracts.
I'm sure that's something that Shane Richardson will do a better job of, given, in comparison to the previous admin. But it's an interesting one where you've got to be careful, haven't you? If you've got a guy that's coming, but he only comes on the proviso that he gets 3 or 4 years, there's probably alarm bells, unless the guy's 21 or 22. Like if you've got someone that's 28 and only will come if they've got a 4-year deal. Like I'd rather someone that turns up and says, "Give me 2 years." And we can renegotiate again, in 18 months, and I'll prove myself to you, and we'll go from there. If you believe you're still a worthwhile commodity in 2 years' time, then you'd be more willing, you'd be okay to go for 2 years. So I think when you got guys like Bateman at the end of their career that say only going to come for 4, that's all about them. It's not about you.
And to me, when you're taking those 4-year deals for those sort of players, you're not showing confidence in your ability to bring guys across the club. And you're not showing confidence in the future that you're selling, because you're having to put in that much extra time. And I know we're a club that's down the bottom of the ladder, but we do have things to sell when we go to that negotiation table. We have the youth we've got coming through. We've got a guy like Jerome Luai coming across. These are things that you can sell yourself in the marketplace. And when you're offering those long-term contracts, I think you're undervaluing yourself, and you're just putting yourself in a worse position every time you do that. So that's something I think we really need to be very wary of over the next couple of months.
Maybe not on an unrelated topic, but maybe the question, like, you remember the Controversy Corner, the old show back decades ago? This is probably the most controversial question of buy, sell, and hold, and I'd like you all to chime in and let me know what you think. And it's out of left field.
Eddie first, because he loves hand grenades.
I'm going to throw this over to Eddie. It's West Tigers should buy Regan Campbell-Gillard and Sean Lane from Parramatta. Both have been given permission to negotiate. That would solve a few problems for the West Tigers buying a back rower and a front rower as a package deal from the Eels. Buy, sell, hold.
Well, if it has to be a package deal, I like Regan Campbell-Gillard. I've got to admit, obviously, I don't watch Parramatta games as closely as West Tigers games. So I haven't watched every minute of their games, and maybe their fans will say he's underperformed, but I still think he's got miles in the clock. I still think he runs pretty hard. I think he's a better bet than Junior Paulo. Not sure about Sean Lane. Just like one of the issues with our pack this year, it's almost, I'm not saying the big has sort of gone out of the game, but like we've got a lot of big guys, Clemmer, Stefano, Twal, big and slow. And Sean Lane reminds me a bit of that old style forward that is perhaps, you've seen Canterbury go with some smaller forwards with power and footwork this year that have worked. So I know you need a combination ideally, but I'd be keen on Campbell-Gillard. I know that I think Saifidi's being shopped around. I think he scored the first try for Newcastle on the weekend. I know he's had a poor year as well, but Sean Lane I think has been really poor this year.
Yeah, for me, I do agree. I'm not that interested in Sean Lane. I've never really been a fan of his football. Campbell-Gillard I'll be definitely having a look at. But I'm going to go back to the point I said a moment ago. It can't be a 3-4 year contract. It's a contract you're getting him over here for a couple of years. It just means that you're not tying yourself up for 2026 or 2027 when there is a better option available. You're still stuck with that poor contract, and that's where we are now. Like having Clemmer sitting there next year on what is it, $800,000? That really ties what you can do, and so if we could get Campbell-Gillard over here for a 2-year contract, I'd be quite happy with that. I'm not that interested in Sean Lane.
I agree, Gary. 2 years, I think, is ideal if you're going to look at both. I just had a look. Campbell-Gillard's 31, so he'll be 32 mid next year. And Sean Lane will be 30 in November. So they're no spring chickens. But, yeah, if you're going to get those guys, and they will bring some experience, you get them no more than 2 years.
And the thing is, like, I had a look at the off-contract props for next year. When you have a look at that list, it's really, really frightening. A 35-year-old Marty Tapau is probably one of your better options in that list of contract players. That's how desperate it is. So if you could get a guy like Campbell-Gillard over for 2 years, then I think that's probably not a bad move at this point in time.
Just on the off-contract props, Sione Fainu's listed on Zero Tackle as off-contract.
Correct. He's still off contract. We do need to get that one sorted out, I think.
Yep.
Shane Flanagan, Dragons coach, came out and said they're in the market for a prop as well. So, there's going to be competition for whoever we buy. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a tough deal to make to find the right person for that position, and we probably need a couple of them. Last one, you can all have your say on this one as well. The West Tigers will turn around a 5-game losing streak against the Knights, which is really depressing given poor the Knights, how not 100% better than us they've been the last couple of years. But they'll turn around that 5-game losing streak this weekend. Eddie, come on, give us something to believe in.
Well, it's like several games this year. It's winnable, but we find a way to lose it. That's what I fear is going to happen. Like, I'd be surprised, Joel, if there's been a season, and I know Steve debated me on this, and I still think I'm right on it. I still think we're by far the worst roster because, we haven't started the game as favourites this year, like in the whole season. So I know form accumulates, and that's built into the price. I won't bog you down in betting sort of stuff, but like we haven't started a game as favourites, so I can't even remember your question now. What was your question?
Will we win this weekend?
Yeah.
Oh,
Couldn't get any simpler, Eddie.
I mean, Newcastle is a poor side, and they're a poor side as well. So it'll be a high scoring game. It's winnable, but I get the feeling we'll get to the 60th minute and we're down or up by 2, and someone's going to get sent off or sin bin. That's where I see things at the moment. So no, I'm selling it. We're going to lose.
So Newcastle are a poor side, Eddie, but they've won 8 games and they're 2 wins outside of the 8.
We're the worst team.
Yes, I know that. But if you look at some of their wins this year, they've been highly unconvincing. I actually think they're a bottom 4 team the way they've played this year, Newcastle. And that was probably the one game that we lost that we really should have won this year when we played them. And outside of Kale and Ponga, I think their roster's quite poor.
Yeah, I think it's a winnable game as well, Eddie, but I won't be tipping them. So it's not a game.
If your life's on the line, you're not tipping them, mate.
No, I'm leading my tipping comp, and I won't be tipping the Tigers.
So your life is on the line.
That's right. It's not a bad prize on this one either. So I won't be tipping them in my tipping comp, but it is a winnable game. I think it's a game. You'd like to think it's a 50-50 game because Newcastle have been so up and down at times. But yeah, I can't put money.
I think Newcastle were in your top 4 at the start of the year, Gary, or was that Declan?
I can't remember. You'll have to go back and listen to the first episode.
I asked the boys, Joel, to do a top 8, and they had about 13 sides in the top 8, including Newcastle and Canberra.
You gave me a hard time because the Broncos weren't in my top 8.
Okay, I'll have to check that one. I can't remember that one. Obviously,
I did leave them out by accident because I didn't.
That is like that. I mean, we're talking about the Tigers, and like 4 wins is probably, it's sad, but 4 wins is probably par with what I expected at the start of the year. So it's not like the team has under-delivered for me. Like it's sort of where the roster is. But Brisbane, look at that. Like they're a superstar roster, and they get 14th. Like if you're Kevin Walters, you're lucky to have a job.
Yeah. Whose season's worse, ours or theirs, Eddie?
Well, theirs is worse, but ours is cumulative, isn't it? So that's the issue. Yeah.
I'd still rather be in their position.
Yeah, but I mean, so much of their success is wrapped up in one guy that's running around on one leg, who's Reynolds. That he was the difference, and as he's starting to reach the end of his days, I don't see an awful lot there to replace him. But anyway, so what you're saying, Eddie, is that you had very low expectations, and the West Tigers didn't disappoint this year.
They met them, yeah. I remember that. And obviously when we do our pre-season predictions, some of the boys on here, they'd be quite optimistic, whether they totally believe that. But I said we'll run last, and if we can improve our win tally, it'll be a good season. And when I suggested to Steve 8 wins would be a great season, he got very, very angry at me. So
I may have got a message from someone over the weekend saying how poor a judge we all were because we said they were going to go so well, Eddie. I think Steve was the only one that predicted us for the top 8.
Yeah, I can't remember, but it's hopefully by episode 1350, Joel, we've
we might win 8 games by then.
Yeah. Over 2 seasons. I'm not in a tipping competition, but I'm very bullish about this game. I believe the West Tigers are going to score a 2 or 4 point win. To worry.
So you're very bullish, but they're going to win by 1.
Winners at this point.
Not going to win by 20.
At this point, a win is massive. Yeah. So that's my prediction. Tigers 1-12 if you're making a bet. The ambush
event.
What
minute do you think we get to play a sin bin?
Yeah.
They're probably doing markets on that now, Gary, some of the corporates. That's how bad it's got. I mean, Did you think the Olam was a send-off? I still can't tell. Like I don't think that was a send-off. Inconclusive. Like I reckon we'll fight it and lose because you rarely win at the judiciary these days. And it doesn't matter because, I mean, he's probably not going to play anyway because he's in for 1 week and out anyway with injuries. But, like, surely the way they've reffed it this year, like 10 minutes would have sufficed for that.
I thought it was 10 minutes.
There was a whisker in it, wasn't there? I mean, when you watch the replay, because it happened so fast and it was such a hard hit, but when you watch the replay and slow it down, it hit him just under the chin. Not on the chin, just underneath. Because who was it that got hit? I can't remember. But he wasn't hurt.
It was the back rower.
Luke. He was stunned. He went down to a knee and he kind of looked around, but then he got up and he was perfectly fine. So I think I can't remember. Did the bunker ruled on that, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah. Because the ref originally ruled play on, then he pulled it up, and then
Yeah, that was tough. But yeah, again, that was half hour to go. So I think we're only behind by 4 or 6 points when that happened. But yeah, that was game over.
It will turn at some point. It can't stay poor and bad and
you
horrible
keep saying
forever.
that, Joel. But
At some point, it will.
am I going to be alive or not?
Yeah. It may be something
20,
our children
58,
or grandchildren
we're
say.
gonna be doing this podcast.
Yeah.
Turns around. Don't worry, Gary. We're not going to Perth next year. But,
At some
Perth, did
stage.
you see the game in Perth? It's a nice stadium.
It is a nice stadium. Yeah.
But they deserve a team, just not
Well
us.
out as well.
The ambush event, Gary. We have an ambush event coming up.
Yeah, for the South Sydney game, not this weekend, but the weekend after out at Campbelltown. We're doing a combined ambush event with the Borough, so that should be interesting. So from 5 p.m. out at the beer shed, so come along. We're expecting a guest from the club, so should be on stage with someone, interviewing someone from the club. And I think there's going to be a little combined podcast with probably me and someone else and someone from Bunnies TV, apparently. So that should be riveting to listen to. And
Do your homework, Gary. You got to be like Nick. You got to go now and listen to Bunny's podcast.
homework. Mate, I don't need to do homework. I'm just natural.
Do they have a podcast?
Don't know.
Yeah.
They've got Bunnies TV, which I don't know a lot about it.
Okay.
So get along to the beer shed, 5 p.m. on the Saturday for next round. I can't remember the date. But yeah, get along to that. It should be a pretty good event. And double check on the ambush page just to make sure times sometimes change a little bit. So depending on when we can get guests from a club.
I'm channeling my inner Eddie here, and I'm going to say something catty. We've got a few spare West Tigers podcasts that they could have if they needed one.
You're going to give them Nick? Oh, no. Yes, I've caught on. There is a couple. I don't know that a club could have any more podcasts, Joel.
No, that's right, exactly. They breed like rabbits, but yeah, exactly. Alrighty, thank you guys. Midweek pod, Eddie, it's happening.
Is it happening? I don't know. I suppose it's Monday night. So when do we play this week? Sunday. So we'll try and do our regular Wednesday pod. Yachty's quiz. Can't do buy, sell, hold now, Joel. So we're going to have to come up with some new content for Wednesday. So
we're always in trouble whenever Eddie
might bring that
invents a new
game. What was that game I bought in a couple of weeks ago? Bench, sell, or kill, or something.
Yeah.
Sit
Was
roll
it
over
start,
and stay.
bench, and
yeah,
I don't know
start,
what the third
sell,
one.
and kill. So
I've got
it's
an
pretty much
idea.
the same game with a different name, Eddie.
Exactly.
What about this one? The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
That was a
a bad
great
idea.
game.
that's very original. That one. That was a good one.
At least I don't just rename my own games to something else.
Exactly. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, boys.
Yeah, get control of this room, Joel.